Hey y'all, this is Ricky Reviews. You already know how it is. I'm gonna tell how it is. So today we're breaking down Senior Elite. So we're gonna take their Worlds routine. We're gonna use their semis routine from Worlds 2025 and compare it to this year's showcase routine, and we're gonna see how they measure up. So the two sections we're gonna look at today is gonna be standing tumbling and stunts. And we're gonna focus more on difficulty because execution can always change. What we're gonna go through today is just seeing if they competed against themselves last year, are they going to score higher or lower? That way we can see how they're going to do. So last year, starting off with standing fulls, last year they did 9 standing fulls plus 3 standing tucks. And then for this year, they have 15 standing fulls and 2 standing tucks that can potentially be upgraded to 17 total standing fulls. So that number is either +6 or +8 from what they competed last year. That is a huge improvement. Moving on from standing fulls to standing two to fulls, last year at Worlds, they had 13 standing two to fulls. This year, we have 12, so we are -1 in standing two to fulls. Moving on to standing two to doubles, last year, they had 4 standing two to doubles. This year, they currently competed 3 standing two to doubles, but in that same section, they had 2 athletes that did standing two to fulls, which should be or hopefully will be upgraded to standing two to doubles. So as it stands right now, they are -1 in standing two to doubles, but if they get those 2 athletes upgraded, then they'll be +1 in standing two to doubles. Moving on to standing two to whip dubs. Last year they had 5 standing two to whip dubs. This year they have 6, but they do have 1 athlete that's in that section doing a standing two to whip full that could be upgraded to standing two to whip dub. If they don't upgrade that athlete, then they'll be staying at +1 from last year. If they add that additional athlete to a double, then they'll be +2 from last year in standing two to whip dubs. The last tumbling pass is a standing 1 to full. Last year they did this by 25 athletes. This year they did it by 27 athletes, so that is +2. So, in the big picture for standing tumbling, they would definitely outscore what they did last year if they were competing against themselves. However, as we know, this is comparative, so it really only matters what their competitors bring, but they have definitely made huge improvements over last year's tumbling numbers. Now, getting into one of my favorite parts, of course, is the stunts. So, we're going to compare last year's stunts to this year's stunts in 3 different categories. So, the first one's going to be release moves, then we're going to look at inversions, and then it'll be dismounts. And we're going to go through, it's going to feel like we're kind of jumping around the routines a little bit, but it's because we're really going to compare apples to apples in each of these categories. So, we're going to start off in release moves with high to high, stretch to stretch. So last year at Worlds, we had 9 stretch to stretch high to highs. This year at Showcase, we had 8 stretch to stretch high to highs, and then 1 lib to stretch high to high. We're, for argument's sake, going to assume that that lib to stretch will be upgraded to a stretch to stretch, which would keep us dead even with last year's numbers in high to high stretch. The next section is going to be this lib to heel stretch low to high by 7 groups last year. And then we had 2 groups that actually did lib to heel stretch high to highs. Now, as we know, if you're doing anything level 4 or lower, so anything lower than level 5, you're not going to get consideration for it. So these low to highs didn't really count for anything. They could have been cut out of the routine. Those high to highs will get a little bit of consideration. We didn't have a comparable skill, but this year we do have stretch to scale high to highs. So this is an improvement over last year's if we want to compare those 2 sections. But going back into last year's that we do not have this year at all is a full around tick from the extended level. So a full around tick high to high, this is an extremely high scoring and extremely valuable skill to have. I'm very shocked that they don't have this choreographed into the routine. I would guess that if they want to be extremely competitive, they're going to start considering making the stretch to scale a full around tick high to high because it's just way more valuable, especially considering they already have the section of stretch to stretch high to highs. So overall in release moves, I'm going to say that they are lower than last year. But let's get into inversion. So starting with rewind. Rewinds to extension last year in this section, we had 4 rewinds to extension and 5 to prep before you come for me. these are to prep. Any judge on the world's panel is going to say you had 5 rewinds to prep. I actually would say that they had 6 rewinds to prep, but we're going to give some consideration for this group here. But this was 4 rewinds to extension and 5 rewinds to prep. This year in that same section, we have 3 rewinds to extension and 6 rewinds to prep. So we actually moved backwards a little bit in this rewind section. Moving into hand-to-hands, last year we had 9 hand-to-hands with a quarter twist to body position. This year we have 9 hand-to-hands to extended body position with a quarter twist. Now I am going to say we're going to call all of these extended, even though about half went to prep, half went to extension. But for argument's sake, we're going to say that we kept all of these to the extended level. Now, what I would be more concerned with is the fact that there are teams in this division that are more than capable of doing extended hand-to-hands to body position. That is going to absolutely outscore them if they compete against teams that have the majority of their team or the entire team doing extended hand-in-hands to body position. They will likely get knocked down in the rankings for stunt difficulty. Moving into rewinds to lib, last year in this section you can see we had 9 groups going. 7 of them did the rewind to lib at prep. So don't come for me. This is a prep. These 7 groups are doing it to prep. And then we had 2 groups that did it to the extended level. This year, we're looking at 7 rewinds to lib. They're all very clearly at the prep level, and they're going straight into another skill right after. So I don't think we're going to see much potential for upgrading because that would be an extremely difficult upgrade to have. I really would urge them to do a rewind to an extended lib. I think that's a super important skill to have. I hope that one of their sections upgrades to a rewind to the extended lib. It's just an important skill. If you have a team that's coming in your division that's going to do rewinds to extended lib, you're probably going to suffer a little bit in stunt difficulty. Overall, looking at these numbers, unfortunately, I think we're also going to be behind this year in stunt difficulty for the inversion section. Last but not least, we're going to move into dismounts. Last year we had 9 kick double dismounts. This year we have 7 kick double dismounts. In the game of comparative scoring, honestly, there's no reason you shouldn't throw in those kick double dismounts or those full kick full dismounts. They help contribute to your stunt difficulty and they're really easy to do. It's just replace, a smush or maybe a creative exit and put a skill in there so that you're getting some difficulty for it. Overall, in standing tumbling, I think this team is in great shape. They're going to be extremely competitive, not just against themselves last year, but in the division. I think those are really impressive and incredible numbers to have for standing tumbling. For stunts, though, I do think they have a lot of weak points that if their competitors are watching, which we all know they are, I think they might fall really low in the rankings for stunt difficulty. They have some heavy hitters, and this division just got bigger. And it got bigger with teams who can do very difficult skills. So the more teams there are that have higher difficulty than you, the lower your score is going to go. That's just how comparative scoring works. So now that we're looking at a division of 7 or 8 teams, where before we had, 4 or 5, they might kind of move down the rankings a bit, and this might put them at risk. I think their biggest areas of opportunity are going to be in that high to high full around tick. That is super important. I would not hesitate to put that in there somewhere, and into getting a rewind to an extended lib. If they can also get a hand-in-hand, an extended hand-in-hand to the extended body position, that would put them, I think, at the top of their division, and they would be in a lot safer place. But at least I would try to get a rewind to an extended lib and a high to high full around tick to stay as competitive as they possibly can. Of course, these are only 2 areas of the score sheet. You still have running, tumbling, you have baskets, pyramid, overall categories like choreography, performance of routine. I think this routine, just from looking at it, is way more exciting and way more fun to watch. I love the structure of the routine. I think the choreographers did a great job this year. I just think that they're lacking a little bit in stunt difficulty. So there are so many ways to win or lose a division and win or lose on the score sheet. So this was just looking at 2 different things. Let me know if you guys want to see anything else. And if you want me to review your routine, click the link in the description below or the link in my bio and you can get Ricky reviewed. Talk to you soon.